Second Watch.
All right. Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome
Hello.
to
Here
this
we are.
second watch. We got a bunch of the guys from the Red Room here waiting to chat with all y'all tonight as we continue talking about Halloween horror stuff. But before we get into all of that, well, we got our first super chat of the night. Let's hit that up. Disco Barbarian, good to see you back, bud.
Disco.
Yard Dog brothers and sword sisters, week has come to a close. The drinks are pouring and Stonestein prep continues, working on orcs, bandits, and dwarves. I want to see play reports of this. I really do. Thanks, Disco. We really appreciate it. Well, Gary, I was going to ask, did you get any gaming in? But I already know the answer because I gamed with you last weekend with Greg Gillespie, Chubby, and Rob Alderman leading the charge on that game. That was a lot of fun. And, for once, I wasn't running a Halloween one shot. It was somebody else, which I appreciate. So I got a chance to be a player. You know what I mean?
No, that was rad. And every time I play the Year Zero engine, I like it a little bit more. And once again, I got to die like a champ. Am I cutting out already?
Yeah. No. I think you're fine. There's a little bit, a little bit here and there, but we'll be all right. We'll make it. Yeah, surprisingly, we didn't get a TPK. I honestly thought it was going to happen, and then
it was due to my sacrifice, my selfless one shot.
No,
sacrifice.
No. The TPK. I mean, it started with you guys going into that tunnel that I told you shouldn't have gone into, and then.
Which is why we had to go into the tunnel, Matt. You were so against it. We had to do it. I love
my characters. Yeah, well, my character is technically afraid of the dark, so I was like, I'm not going in there. But anyway, but yeah, that was a fun time. I'm glad Chubby got a chance to play with you, got a chance to play and really talk to Greg Gillespie. That was really cool. He's might be a guest on the show. He said he's interested, and we just got to schedule him, so that'll be great.
Absolutely.
Yes, it was due to an amazing number of successes at the last round of the fight, which did not include Gary's sacrifice, which did not include Gary's character because he was already dead. So yes, Chubby, I am in agreement with you on that one. So but yeah, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. So I hope everyone's getting their Halloween one shots in. And before we get our guests in, just a couple bits of news here. Matthew Tapp, Barrows and Borderlands. He's got that Kickstarter with the Arduin guys and Griff Morgan called the Portal to Adventure. I just want to give a shout out to those guys, specifically Matt, because on his Discord channel, he's got his bots linking up to the second watch, so whenever we post something, it goes to his. And I just wanted to say thank you publicly. That's really cool of you, man. There's a week left on this Kickstarter. Please go check it out. I'd love to see if they hit 50K. They're at like 33 now or something like that.
Real quick, on another note, just real quick with Barrels of Borderlands, way back months ago, and the
you're gonna have to repeat that.
So when Matt was first on the show months ago, he said, Gary, I'm going to send you something. And that box has been passed back and forth. The U.S. Postal Service has fucked it up. God damn it. Is it doing it again? Anyway, it's supposed to arrive tomorrow. I've seen a picture of it. Fingers crossed.
Oh, nice. Very cool. All right. Yeah. Well, that's good. Next week. Oh, before we get into that, I've been told the decks of many triggers, the shipments are going out. So I hope you guys are getting it. I'll be getting a few extra. I already have 2 of those reserved for people who didn't make the Kickstarter for that or the crowdfunding for that. But I'll let y'all know what I have if you're interested. And then finally, next week is Halloween. We're going to try to do like a Halloween contest. So take pictures of yourselves, send it to us. We'll do a live thing, and I got books and stuff. I'll put pictures, and you can pick out of the stuff that I don't want anymore. A lot of it's in great condition. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to send you crap. But so hope to see you next week in costume for Halloween. Better see you there. All right. Anything else, Gary? Any other news?
No, let's get our guests on. We're
All
not
right.
that interesting.
No, we're not. But we got the Red Room here. Judd, OSR Dwarf, and of course, Miguel Ribeiro of the Red Room. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Howdy,
having me.
howdy.
Thanks for the invitation.
Happy Friday, gentlemen. Miguel, you are hopefully drinking coffee or something because it's
I had
4
a,
o'clock.
I had a coffee before. Yeah,
All right.
That's like 4 a.m. for Miguel. He's
I had an espresso.
Crisp Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's an early start.
So, well, to just kind of get into it, last week we were talking about horror generally speaking, and I got thinking about settings like the classic like TSR one, Ravenloft, right? And who better to talk about settings and the variety of things you can do than the Red Room, because it seems like everything you guys have done touches upon that. And I figured, yeah, let's talk about settings tonight. Miguel, starting with you, I know the answer to this question, but I don't know if our viewers do. Film has been one of your major influences. Can you talk a little bit about, like, I guess, the giallo? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, giallo. In the beginning, that was in fact the only inspiration for a while. When I was still publishing through Postmortem, the first 3 scenarios were all inspired by giallo movies. So, for people who don't know what's a giallo movie, you probably watched a few. It's a subgenre of horror, Italian-made movies. Late 1960s, 1970s. There are some in the 80s as well. Usually there's no supernatural. Usually there is just a normal killer. So it's basically a thriller. Somewhere in between those more modern stuff from the 80s slasher movies, and the earlier thrillers like Hitchcock movies. So it's something in between. And for some reason, I decided that it was a good idea to adapt that, because at the moment that there are several giallo games. There's one being kickstarted now, but when I started writing those scenarios, the only thing, as far as I know, in role-playing games was a Spanish source book for a horror game. It was in Spanish, not in English, so I thought it was a very niche genre to explore.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's when I started kind of getting to know your stuff, is through through those original adventures. Other than the novelty, was there anything in particular you thought about those, I guess, genre of films that would translate well to a role-playing game, and specifically like a horror game?
Actually, the main reason, I had already did a scenario which I had played with my group about 20 years ago, maybe more. In fact, that was the main reason. I already had it done in Portuguese. I had to translate it, so it was the main reason. But I think that's they are easy to translate into games, and they're a little bit different from other horror movies. There's that weirdness about it. And they are politically incorrect, of course. So that was also a reason. Kind of movies that wouldn't be done today.
What are some titles of some movies that people could go look for that we might be able to see here in the States? I mean, we got the internet, so whatever's out there.
Let me check, because those movies have so many titles.
Yeah.
There was one I got turned on. You guys a year and a half ago. Like I was chatting with you about him, and I can't remember. It was like a dude who went up and throughout this like apartment complex with like a bag of tools, and he was just killing people with the tools. I think it's called the Toolbox Murders or something.
There's a Toolbox Murder. Yeah.
Right
So
on.
the most famous, I guess, the one that we can always recommend is Deep Red. Of course, that's probably the best in the genre. Dario Argento's probably most famous movie.
Gotcha.
Okay,
And then I guess we can recommend any movie by Dario Argento. Some of them aren't actually jealous. Some of them are, or the ones that have supernatural elements. But usually the style, the cinematography and all that is very similar. You won't. Sometimes there's a difficulty if you getting to figure out if it's a giallo or not, because all the style is the same. Basically, they invented it. Argento, Mario Bava, a few others at the time.
So how about you, Judd, OSR Dwarf? What about you guys? Like, what about giallo? I mean, did you guys get into giallo prior to the Red Room, or was it because of the Red Room?
Not under that name. Yeah, I did not know much about the underpinnings of it. Now, of course, I'm of the age where back, late night on Cinemax or HBO, you would get those, translated movies, and you'd be like, what's even going on here, right? Like, and some of those, the genres would shift, but yeah, there would always be these like thrillers or supernatural movies. Yeah. Well, the later it got, the more Skinemax it would get, right? And so, yeah, so a lot of them I had seen, just from that or from other, spooky movie of the week sort of things, and didn't really have a, know that the genre was there. Clearly, I knew they were Italian, but
Right.
and I'm always a little hazy on where things like Suspiria sit and things like that. Like that's not giallo per se, but it's certainly pretty close to that umbrella. And that the giallo supplements that Miguel did are what attracted me to the Red Room, because his scenario setups for all of those are it's not it's not an event. It is a location and some NPCs and some situations that are going on, like there's the hospital, in the memorial, there's the loft in Orphan Lofts, and it's just this group of people that work at this hospital or live in this apartment building, and you could even have the hospital down the road from the apartment building, and let them play off of each other. But all you had to do was just put a PC or two in an apartment, or as a patient in the hospital, and they're in the middle of all this stuff that just kind of blows up. And I loved the fact that it was just this, setup for a bunch of adventures. And then like, in the tail end of the book, there's like, oh, here are the things that can pop off to get your PCs involved. And I just loved it, because that's close, as I, said in an earlier, stream with you guys, that's kind of very close to how I plot things anyway. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're this gels what I want. So as he kind of started developing his own system and his own works, and especially with that cinematic feel to everything he was doing. I really liked what he was putting out. So by then we had struck up a friendship and a conversation on MeWe, and yeah, the rest was just kind of history. And then I was lucky enough to start gaming with him on a weekly basis.
How about to be honest, it was darker that pulled me in. And then I found out about giallo, And I started watching some earlier, the Franco films, because Miguel loved these things. It's like, oh, wow, there's a whole genre that I only knew through snippets. I knew about Suspiria. I knew about some of these films that had been put out by Italian auteurs. And I'd watched them and always thought, that's very different. And I didn't really fully appreciate what was going on there until I started looking at some of Miguel's stuff and started watching the films, especially when we started working on Grindhouse Red and The Other Side of the Mirror. I mean, he's giving you his viewpoint into the things he loves there, and you can see it. And I just thought Other Side of the Mirror was really great because Franco is a guy that a lot of people in the U.S. still don't know about. But he did a lot of stuff. Some of it was bad, let's be honest. But some of it was really, really good and weird and just frightening in a different way than you're used to. It attacks your security. It upends your expectations. You know, it's like, you know, it goes after things that in U.S. horror, in English horror, we usually don't go after. And we might now. I'll take that back. Some things will go there now. Some things will be intentionally transgressive. But Franco was transgressive when that term didn't exist.
Yeah, the Sandy Peterson pointed out that, like, in Japanese and Italian horror, especially, like, nothing is safe, right? Like,
Right.
and there's not that. Well, less so in Italian horror, but there's not that moral framework that you have to do something bad for the haunting to affect you. Like, nope, someone did something bad, and now we all have to suck the pipe until we fix this thing, right? Oh,
Right.
It's bad luck. You can't fix this thing, right?
Well, that's
the world is screwed up, and it's human beings' fault.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter that it's not yours.
Yeah, well, it's almost more frightening that it's an accident, right? Like you could,
yeah.
And I was actually listening to James Radji was talking about the first Friday the 13th movie like that, because everyone in the 80s, all the kids in the 80s were, you know, going out to like the beaches or like the woods or whatever to get drunk and fool around and whatever, and that's what you did, right? And then, oops, you went to the wrong Crystal Lake, right? And now there's this guy that's just gonna kill you, and he's like this crazy supernatural thing. And I thought that was a really neat point to make, because it could be you, right? You, the teenager going out into the woods to party with your friends, you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, kind of thing. So yeah, that's a really great point. You guys mentioned a couple. Well, actually, before we go any deeper, Dying Breed has been asking some questions.
I was just gonna say,
yeah. I think Miguel, you already got the first one, but I'll put it up there anyway. You are one of the most prolific indie game authors. How do you find the time to create and balance real life obligations? This is an excellent question.
Yeah, I already did that. Answer something. I do this full time, so it's a job. But during the first 2 years, I was working on weekends as well, so it was not. It wasn't just a 9 to 5 job. It was really occupying more of my time. The second question.
And he's a legit writer too, right? So he's used to churning out copy, you know, good copy quickly. So I think that has worked to his advantage too.
Weren't you, Miguel? Weren't you like in your previous life like a journalist?
I was, unfortunately.
What advice?
And I'm sorry about that, but I did do that. It was years ago, so at the time there were 2 journalists, and I was writing entertainment, so it was.
What advice would you give to a new indie game designer publisher? What mistakes to avoid? What opportunities to embrace?
Okay, I'll start by the mistakes. Don't get banned from drive-thru.
Be nice to drive-through. Check. Okay, yeah, I'll write that one down.
Not, you don't have to be nice. Just don't get in a fight. I think the most important thing is getting the product out there. even more important than the product being good, I guess. Having a YouTube channel usually works. Not that much for us because we haven't been taking care of the YouTube channel for a long time. We are trying to revive it now, and the social media presence as well, of course. Apparently, doing a Kickstarter is also a very good thing, but I never tried that, so I don't. That's not something I cannot recommend because I never experienced it. But apparently, it's pretty good to get people to know it.
Yeah, that's actually something I've been noticing. I think if you have developed a presence on social media, you can then leverage that
Yeah, I
your
think
subscribers.
having a potential audience is very important.
Yeah, and a Kickstarter's almost its own thing. If you're going to do a Kickstarter, have your P's and Q's minded and your I's and T's, taken care because it only takes one, mediocre to bad Kickstarter for people to kind of lose faith in what you're doing. So yeah, if you're going to do a Kickstarter as part of whatever you're doing, yeah, just make sure you don't you don't overpromise and underdeliver, which is unfortunately pretty common with certain gaming projects, especially the first Kickstarter people do. Right, that's the one they make all the mistakes on, and then hopefully learn from.
Yeah,
But nowadays you can learn from other people's mistakes and just sort of avoid it.
yeah. I know. Well, my first crowdfunding thing was is this deck of many triggers, and we experimented with a now defunct game online store, Giant Slayer. Dude did a great job on the back
Is it
end.
over? I didn't
I
know
think,
about.
yeah, I think it's done. But the cards have been done. We did run into some problems with the Chinese printing company not printing 2 of the cards correctly, so that delayed some things. And then, of course, the tariff issue kind of slowed some things down too. But I swear they're coming. I was talking to James Neckbeardia just like the other day, so they're coming.
I got their email, but
I will
I'll be
say
expecting it in a month or so.
Yeah.
the best thing you guys did for that was that music video. That thing was classic. It will go down in gaming history as a thing that happened.
Yeah. Well, that was I think, who was I talking to? I was like, we were just talking, and then I was like, Miguel, do you think you want to put this together? And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, here's this. And it was like
that
6
was
hours.
Miguel's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, it was the video making.
See,
yeah.
he's got a country music soul. He doesn't
for
believe it, but I think deep down he's got a little Conway Twitty in him somewhere.
Yeah. It just started off as like a couple of us in the Red Room server joking and riffing off like what would happen if we had like a country music dude writing a song about the deck of Netty triggers, and the next thing you know, we had that video. It was pretty cool. But all right, one last question from Dying Breed here. Well, not the last question. You're free to ask more questions, but this is what I got.
But
they
start accruing money now. Like we need
what is more what is more important, a solid game or a solid audience, at least in the beginning?
Well, you hope a solid game leads to a solid audience, right? But if you have a solid audience, if you don't release a solid game, you'll lose your solid audience.
Or maybe not. It depends.
Maybe not. Yeah.
If you have enough audience, and if the audience really likes you, I guess they don't care. For example,
Daggerheart. Is that what you're going
to say? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Apparently, it's not a solid game. So, but they have a solid audience.
I've heard that there's
a
good game in there. So maybe
the reality is they're not even using their own game for their current season.
Nope.
And that tells you all you need to know.
That interview with Professor Dungeon Master, they went, okay, like in my job, I'm paid to, I'm a professional bullshitter. Like, I'm paid. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, I thought I cut out there. Yeah, I'm in my really real job. I'm supposed to, how do I want to say, sell my client's position. So, and I could tell you, I they were doing backflips during that interview. So I didn't believe a single word that they said. I'm not saying they were lying. I'm just saying I don't believe them. But anyway, Dagger Heart, I don't think that's too many tchotchkes. It was too written not by people who knew what they were doing. Oh, I think Judd lost audio. Okay, we'll get on that in just a second. We
I'm
got
good now, I think.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yep.
We got a super chat from Disco, $5. Thank you, sir. Yo, if y'all are considering work in China, please contact me. It's what I do for a living, and I have 26 years of doing overseas manufacturing. Oh,
What?
okay,
Oh, okay.
sweet.
What?
Thank you, thank you, Disco. We will keep that in line.
You may have launched a lot of ships with that comment.
Yeah, I know.
Or sunk them.
Yeah. So kind of getting back to the Red Room. So okay, we Miguel started off with like these Giallo scenarios, and then he started developing the Wretched RPG system, and then all of a sudden we have all of these different settings that frankly have like this tinge of horror to them. I guess Miguel, can you speak to that? Like what like Wretched Space is just not a space opera, right?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Like
There are some other elements to it, including horror, of course. It's impossible for me to not to include some almost impossible. I'm not going to say impossible because there's a couple of games that we've released that have no supernatural elements in it, but most of them have. When I play a game, even if it's not an horror game, eventually I will sneak in some element. Not necessarily supernatural horror, but at least a bit of thriller, horror, suspense.
what did the oh, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you didn't.
Okay. One of the things that kind of came up in the last episode, where we asked our guests, like, so how do you do one shots in horror? And they're all like, well, you may have gotten the wrong guess because we really don't do this. But they also said
That's the absolute truth.
I was like, yeah,
Oh, no.
that's literally what they said. Yeah. But they made a good point. They were like, we do kind of think there's an element of horror in just your regular, dungeon crawls. So do you think that's just sort of D&D or the RPG in general just sort of lends itself to that, or is horror specifically setting up a setting for horror unique to, I guess, D&D? And this is a question to all three of you.
I'm going to be real frank. I don't see D&D as manifesting horror in any meaningful sense. And let me explain why. I've written articles about this. I've written forwards. So the reality is that horror requires something more than just monsters or darkness, because you can have those elements and it becomes dark fantasy, right? That's not really horror. How shall I explain this? Horror is, the way I've described it before is that horror is a feeling akin to divine awe. It's visceral fear and discomfort. It's not simple terror, which can be the very reasonable fear of horrible, bloody death. It is the fact you are confronted by something that is outside of your comprehension, and yet it is there in your face.
Yeah,
It is more than dark fantasy.
Yeah, I think the difference between just the risk of D&D and horror is that idea that that there's the out of context aspect of it, right? When you go into a dungeon, most of the characters and the players are both prepared. Like, oh, we might meet some goblins, we might meet some skeletons. You know that there's monsters down there. It's part of the job, right? And in some cases, you can have horror elements where you know that your job is to go fight a monster, but then when you get in, what makes it horror is that it's so much worse than you thought it was, right? Like, it's more overwhelming, it's more difficult to deal
And
with.
you're more helpless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the helplessness aspect is big. So yeah, it's risk plus that lack of context plus a kind of an overwhelming feeling, right?
If I was to make a
Hopefully,
comparison,
yeah, hopefully dungeons don't do that to you, right?
if I was to make a comparison, I would say that D&D, you're looking at two things. You're either looking at a Victorian style horror like Ravenloft that's intentionally retro, and let's be frank, isn't really scary. It's dark. It's grim.
Yeah.
It's creepy. It's weird. Or the other aspect is that it's a thriller, right? It's not horror. It's a thriller. You have elements that create tension. You have stress when you're fighting a monster that's really tough, and it's like, okay, are we going to start losing party members? But the reality is, compared to ordinary real world schlubs like us, the characters we play in D&D are very capable. And they're just not helpless the way that protagonists in horror games are. I see that as a significant difference.
Yeah,
I agree. What? Oh, I don't. Go ahead, Judd.
I was going to say the other helplessness aspect that horror usually brings in is that you have a dependent or some ancillary character, right? And it's not just the risk to you; it's the risk to your kid or your spouse or something like that. You're not going to bring, you're not attached to your torchbearer usually. It will be sad when Yorick dies, but you will get over it and someone else will pick up the torch, right? But yeah, in horror scenarios, usually there's going to be, a threat to someone else who is even more ill prepared, and that's why you need to stand in the breach.
Aunt May.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to quote Miguel from his foreword to Darker, this is not a game for the faint of heart. Darker takes characters into a contemporary world on the edge of collapse, a place where ancient evils seep through the cracks of a society too arrogant to see its own ruin. It rejects the comforts of narrative handholding and the safety of heroic tropes. And see, that's exactly what D&D gives you, is heroism. But in horror, all your heroes are dead.
So, real quick, I'm just kind of looking at the comments on the side from C. Miller and from Isaac. Hey guys, how's it going, man? How's it going, Isaac? Those guys were to Minds of Moria. Those guys were capable, but it was frightening. Ravenloft is horror. We've added terms like gothic as time went on. Characters are helpless. I think one of the things, there are certain elements of horror that you can bring over to your game, but I think like last week when we were talking with Bacon, you're not going to make your players feel a sense of horror that your characters might, but some elements of horror are feeling powerless or having that powerlessness. And you're right, with D&D, those guys are pretty capable, but you can use creepy atmospheric things. You can get that. You can use elements of horror to get that,
and that's what you get. You get creepy
feeling.
Atmospheric things,
right?
You get,
but I
get creepy. You get
agree.
thrillers. That's what it is. It's a thriller.
Yeah, but it is. I do think an actual sense of terror is difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah, well, I think what OSR Dwarf is getting at is that's doing a really good job of describing the goblins, kind of like what I was talking about last week, will give a thrill to the players because they're like, oh, what is this? But is that really getting into like the horror genre? And I think I kind of agree with that. And I'm still the guy who's trying to find a way to have my actual players, have some kind of anxiety attack at the table, because I want them to have that immersive. I want them to be immersed. I want them to have like some sort of, visceral reaction. Obviously, it's not going to be 1-to-1 because they're sitting at a table eating Cheetos or whatever, unless I pull a loaded weapon on them, which I'm not going to do.
You can get that using a thriller. You can, but if you want horror, honestly, it's not going to happen in D&D. It can happen in darker because the truth is there's a very good chance the characters won't survive. The situation is extremely dark, but also there's this sense that you don't actually know what's going on. Certain things will not be explained and cannot be confronted, and they're random. You can't control them. They're simply going to destroy one of you randomly, and it isn't even your fault, and it doesn't matter.
That sounds like almost
not D&D, of course, but let's say a bandits game, medieval authentic, where the magic and the supernatural is not as common as in the typical D&D setting. And in that case, you can probably sneak in horror there, because characters might not be used to monsters. That's something perhaps they know that they exist somewhere, but they aren't like everyday thing. There are not orcs in the woods.
Yeah,
not all woods, at least.
You've heard about a Black Angus. You've never seen one, and now you're in the middle of it. Faded breath.
Specific setting, and maybe if the characters are not powerful yet at the beginning, level 1 characters probably are still easy to kill and easy to scare the characters.
Now, for the anxiety element that you're talking about, I think one of the ways to stoke that is when the situation doesn't give you any good choices, right? Like you're choosing least good alternatives because, all the good choices were wasted when you got here, right? You got to this point and now you have to make a decision between bad thing and even more bad thing. And, or in the worst case for anxiety effect is they both suck, right? But you've got to decide at a moment's notice which of the two alternatives you're going to take, and the more stakes there are to those decisions, the more anxiety you'll have, right? Because that anxiety is the pause you make while you try to decide what to do about something, right? And the anxiety is because that gets longer and longer the more your options suck, right? And so
on top of that, pausing in the face of the horror will probably get you killed.
Right. Yeah. You can't hesitate, but you almost need to hesitate, right?
So it's like you're confronted with the horror and you realize your only hope is to sacrifice a party member. So do you grab them by the by the collar and throw them in front of you and run away? Or do you pause in the face of it because your brain locks at the thought of doing something so horrible, and then it eats you?
Or do you push them away and you take the bullet?
That's the point of the game where Matt realizes that I am about to start plotting against his character and kill him in game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As soon as that realization
it's that
happens,
moment when you
he
find
knows
out who your
that I'm
friends
looking
are.
for. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't feel bad about it, because there was a moment not too long ago where Matt made that choice and threw us all to the dogs.
Exactly.
Call of Cthulhu.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. He was. He might as well have been the enemy soldier.
When Sandy handed me the professor, I knew because I think that's what he said. He's like, "You're a librarian or a professor." I knew exactly what character I was going to be playing, and he's like, "You already lost some sanity points because you've." Yeah, and I saw that I knew magic. I'm like, "Yep, I'm going to betray the party. I'm going to find a way to betray the party and like embrace Cthulhu." But with the stuff that you guys are talking about, it has nothing to do with game mechanics, does it? You're actually talking about what the player is like experiencing as they're trying to like make their way through this scenario, right? Like, oh crap, my choices have become limited, and there's this like otherworldly or random element that could really what's the word I'm looking for? Screw up my plans or my expectations. Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing I look for and I try to do when I do horror. It's like attack agency, like without overtly taking it away in like 90% of the cases. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
Like,
I think even Sandy has admitted that the Sandy mechanic, or in Red and Wretched, the fear mechanic is there to kind of systematize the risk that you're putting yourself to psychologically, uh, but it's just there to kind of serve as a cue for the players and the GM, that things are building up. But you don't want, in play, you hope that means that the player is mindful of that, but you also realize that, like, the things that I do to make this score go up or my sanity go down are bad choices, but they're also choices that I have to make to get closer to my goal. And so there is some mechanical weight there, but you don't want that mechanic to be the load bearing aspect of it, right?
Okay, wait a second. Hang on. Let me just ask a little bit more. Could a mechanic induce just enough stress into the player, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That it helps to heighten that level of suspense while you're in the game. So
Yes,
maybe not
because it
every
keeps you
mechanic,
honest. Yeah.
right? And maybe not every mechanic is great. Like, we can all, attest to that. But I do think there is something to the mechanic, because I do think you're playing, there is a player behind the character. So maybe not all mechanics work, but I think a good one can add to something with an experienced
You
game master.
have to be careful, I think, because too much mechanics can disrupt immersion.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because you want the horror to be primarily, I think, in the mind of the player. But I do think the mechanics help because they induce stress and make what's happening in the game real from a game perspective.
Yeah, it keeps you honest, because there is and it's not even, like, I wouldn't say that you're a bad player if you do this, but there's a tendency when you're in a horror scenario or a tense scenario in an RPG to kind of no sell the risk, right? Like I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to do the bold, cool, heroic thing that 2% of the world would do, right? But I'm that dude. so you want to be the the WWE star, right? And so you're just going to straight baby face it. You're going to no sell all the risk, and sanity and panic mechanics, they keep you honest, right? Like you're putting this person through something.
You
That
want an
situation
in-game
is going to
consequence.
have some feedback. Yeah.
Because here's the thing, you've had a companion you've come into the game session with. He is somebody you know, or she, someone you talk to, someone you interact with, someone you rely on. They suddenly go missing. The next thing you know, you find yourself in a room that smells like rotting meat, and there is their skin tacked on a wall, and the Apostle of Pain smiling at you, standing there with the blood-stained flensing knife. Is your character going to take fear points from this? Yes, of course. And that will ramp up tension, and that will, that will supplement the horrific description you're giving, and increase the tension and increase the consequences. I think where it falls apart is when you start using it for things that aren't really tied to what's going on in the game. I'm not going to name names, but if you start using it for those other things, it totally breaks immersion. You definitely want it tightly tied to what's going on in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with that. I think if you lean too far into the war game side of the hobby, you do it becomes more about the grid combat, even if you're doing like theater of the mind, right? Like you're more into like worrying about what the mechanics are going to optimize your choices, and that is not immersion.
Well, and even war games
and
have
that's why
morale mechanics.
why you. Oh, sure. but that's not like you actually experiencing the horror, right? You're just like, oh, I failed my morale check.
True.
I guess my troops are falling back, or I guess my retainers have left me. But that's why, like, I when I think of horror gaming, like I'm less concerned about the mechanics, though. A good mechanic, I've said this before, a good mechanic will help. So I do agree with that. I'm more concerned with like how to get my players afraid. I can easily make a character afraid by casting a spell. I cast fear. Yay, your character's afraid. But that to me is not the experience of a horror game. Like I want the player needs to feel like they're watching like a really good movie. But what's even worse or great, depending on how you look at it, you're actually experiencing it. You're actually facing off with Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger or whatever, Michael Myers, whatever. So how do you do that? And I just don't think mechanics are gonna do it.
Perhaps the best way is to pick players who want to play a horror game, and that works.
Yeah.
If you pick players who want to play a horror game, it will work, in spite of mechanics, in spite of everything.
Yeah,
if you pick players who never want to play a horror game, it will never work because they won't be in the right mindset. So even if you have good mechanics, even if you have a good game session, everything prepared, if the players do not like playing horror games, it won't work.
Yeah, I call that the spook house effect. Like if you go to your JC spook house and you want to be spooked and scared and surprised, then you're going to throw yourself into that. But there's always that one dude that's going to punch everybody that jumps at him, right? And he runs it for whoever's around him, especially the ghost, right? And so if you have to be willing to play a horror scenario. Yeah, if you play Call of Cthulhu and you're just going to shoot everything and then be sad when that doesn't work, then you're not going to enjoy it as much. Now, there's something to be said for starting as the guy that shoots everything, and then when you find out it doesn't work, then you have to buckle down and figure out like, oh, these academics are actually saying some things that are true, and you can pivot from that, right? And certainly cultist taking a bullet is a proper solution sometimes, but so yeah, you just have to be ready to commit to the genre, right? Like you don't play a sci-fi game and then bitch about how FTL doesn't work because of planks, the plank constant, or you can't just you have to. There's certain tropes we all agree to when we do these things.
Well,
right?
the suspension of disbelief, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in horror's case, it's the suspension of bravery in a way, right? Like you're admitting that you're going to play a character that's going to get scared and spooked and have to run away and is going to wonder, why is this happening to me, sort of,
I think it goes a little deeper than that, but I'll put a pin in that because I know Gary was trying to say something, then he turned into a Decepticon and we lost what he was saying.
Well, I was gonna ask you, what role-playing games have you played where you really feel like you're in any kind of danger?
Well, none.
You say that you want your players to feel this sense of dread and horror and everything else, and I think that's an unfair expectation to put on yourself, man. I think that everybody get in.
I'm trying to climb Mount Everest, dude. Because I have experience. Well, I haven't. Like, I know I'm not going to have my players unless I bring. I've made this joke privately with Bacon, and I've said it a couple times here. I'm like, unless I bring a loaded gun to my sessions, and no one's going to feel fear, right? And if I do that, then maybe I should be put into an asylum.
You'd be the greatest game master of all time if you brought every failed die roll was.
We're playing 1-to-1 hit points, guys. 1-to-1 hit points.
You joke about that, but there was that book John Wick wrote, Play Hard or whatever, where he's like, oh, if you want your characters to be, to feel viscerally, you have to like grab them by the collar and jack them against the wall, which I'll guarantee you is something that man has never done, because he's still
because he's completely gay and retarded.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But but to answer your question, Gary, like I have hell, well, when I was at North Texas Con with Raji's game, he made us I can't speak to anybody else, but just looking around the table, everyone looked uncomfortable. Okay, I was uncomfortable.
Yeah, he told
and I'm
you,
like,
I can't give it away, but
yeah,
he told
like,
y'all to do something very uncomfortable.
well, yeah, no, and
So
it's
let
just
me
like,
let me
and it
pose a
was
question.
Raji
and
told
it-
Matt
and-
to do something uncomfortable.
yeah, I know,
Mhm.
and
So
everyone,
Reggie has done some great stuff, but he's a freak. The answer would be no, always.
no, well, I wanted the Lamentations experience from the man himself, and boy, did I get it. And I had, and
My stuff is tame, guys. My stuff is tame.
I had I had those moments of like, oh crap, what do I do? Like where my agency, right, was actually sort of limited, not by virtue of the mechanics or by game master fee, virtue of the scenario. And that really made me like,
Yeah.
oh crap. Like, so no, I wasn't fearful, but I was feeling dread. I felt uncomfortable. I certainly was doing everything I could to survive, and I did, thankfully. I lost all the paintings I had stolen, but that's a tale for another day.
Yeah, and that's that anxiety. Yeah, where every choice you've got sucks, right? And
Yeah.
you've got to figure out which suck you're comfortable with.
Okay, I just want to quote Dying Breed. Thanks, man. Every corpse on Mount Everest was once a highly motivated person. Maybe calm the fuck down.
So here's the question I'll pose. What were your expectations when you read Peter Straub's ghost story or watched the movie? What were your expectations when you watched Salem's Lot? Clearly, if you aren't in the right mindset when you read or watch these things, you're not going to get the full experience. When I watched Ghost Story for the first time, it was close to midnight. I was by myself. All the lights were off, and I nearly peed myself in that one scene. And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah. I
If
know
you've watched it, you know what the scene is.
I don't think I've seen it.
If I had
I'm
watched
writing
it in
down.
broad daylight after, having a good time somewhere and being happy and up and fun, it would not have hit me the same way. So I think there does have to be a certain investment.
I would agree with that. I think you need to. And that's why I kind of say to some people who are like the detractors of Lamentations, I'm like, you just don't get it. I hate saying that, but I just do feel that, like, you just don't get it. When that's fine. It's not, you don't have to get it. You can get something else. But that's why, going back to the original topic of this conversation, we've totally gone off the rails, and that's totally fine. But like the settings that the room has offered, like you have all these little varied things that kind of, I think, help put you in the mindset. Would you agree? That mindset you were talking about.
They were supposed to, I guess. But there are no horror scenarios for fantasy. Not by us, at least.
I sort of, yeah. Well, I think Wretched Bastards and Savage Swords are like their own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Savage Swords does have horrific elements because there is that Lovecraftian element because it comes in by way of Robert E. Howard, right? Howard was part of the Lovecraft circle.
That's true.
He did write his own take. Now, Howard being Howard, his stories were never quite as dark as Lovecraft's. Because I don't think Howard ever fully bought into Lovecraft's cosmic philosophy. That was particularly dark and hopeless.
He was a good Texas boy. Of course he did.
He was a Southern Methodist. He was a Methodist. Anyway.
Speaking of Dying Breed, I'm not the one that said he was a freak. That was OSR.
That was me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and also
Because I think he's the
wouldn't
prince
fuck
of
with
role playing games. One day he is going to change his name to a sigil, and if he beats Venger to it, I'm going to pay someone $10 because
No, if anyone's
they're in a race. They're in a race.
If anyone's
to see
going
who's
to
change their name.
Yeah. If anyone's going to become the game designer formerly known as Venger Satanis, it's going to be him. Yeah. But
I am
Yeah,
probably more in the
Make that my
Venger
Twitter
camp
name.
than in the
Hang on.
James Reaggi camp. I'll admit it. There you go. I've said it.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
I agree.
if
I
you're
agree.
not in
I
Avengers
like
camp,
erotic horror, but I want to keep it hetero. There you go. That's all I'm going to say.
if you're not in Avengers camp, he will leave a flyer on your car.
that's
and you will have to throw him in purgatory for that.
We-
Apparently,
we don't know. We don't
we don't know
know.
that he did that. Right? It's true. Right.
We don't know.
But
who
let me
did it.
ask you a question. Who else would have put a whole bunch of flyers for VentureCon on a bunch of people's, like
The cult of Corthalis, apparently.
now, considering that every convention I've ever been to, I've gotten a bunch of flyers for things, right? And I've never found myself clutching my pearls about any of them, like even the ones where I'm like, no, I think I'll let your furry con come and go without my attendance, thanks. But how weak are some of these people that this stuff gets to them, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
that's
no,
not
that
our
was
topic.
ridiculous.
That's not our topic
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah. Dying Breed's got a really great comment for you, Gary. As much shit as Gary Guy gets for level drain monsters, that's probably the closest anyone has come to instilling real fear in players.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why you don't see level drain all that often in the modern design.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Oh yeah,
I would agree with that completely.
yeah. At ArnieCon, we were playing Barrows and Borderlands, and I'm playing a fifth level fighter that I have seen that hour, right? Like, this is not a character I got to 5th level, and I'm starting to lose levels, and I'm feeling it, right? Because I'm like, yeah, there's only one cure for level drain, and that's get those levels back, and that is
Or restoration.
Yeah, but yeah, you.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of something that increases tension, but in my view isn't truly horrific because the threat is to the game aspect, not to the PCs per se. Level drain sucks in a system where you're grinding to get those XP, and now you just lost a couple of levels because the vampire hit you, and he's going to hit you because he's good at it.
Yeah, but
there is a tension there, right?
Yeah, well, I actually
again,
no,
yes,
because you're
thriller.
threatening the player's piece of paper that they for some reason hold so dear. You know what I mean? Like this is my collection of numbers, and you're about to take some of those numbers away. I think that it actually does. I actually do think that actually creates something more than just tension.
Yeah. Well, and that is an aspect of horror, right? Like, your training isn't correct. You have been taught a thing, and now everything you've been taught is not working out the way you thought, right? And so you're like, oh, I thought as long as I, kicked down doors and took names, I would go up in levels. Why am I now 4th level? And why am I now 3rd level? Like, we need to get out of here, guys. Like, no, we want those silver pieces. No, screw you, buddy. I don't want to be a 0 again, right?
Yeah.
And so,
your options as a player moving your character through this world all of a sudden go from many to very few if you want to survive, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I want to kind of get to a practical topic, right? When we're talking about horror movies, typically there's a bad guy, supernatural or not, right? What makes for the scary bad guy? Or am I mistaken there? Is there no bad guy? Is there no Jason Voorhees? Or I really don't play a lot of horror games.
The real question is, are there any good guys?
Yeah. Well, let's look at Jason. He's a really good example. Jason is a kid who died because he was ignored by camp counselors that were off fruiting around with each other, right? And so he holds that against everybody that shirks that responsibility, right? So he's not, well, he's evil because he kills people, right? But he is a foil to what the good guys, quote unquote, are doing, right? So the good guys are all these teenagers. Oh, there's no kids, so they're not really doing what he's mad about. Usually the movies are set where where they're setting up or tearing down for the summer, so that the kids aren't really at risk. But he doesn't know that. So anytime he sees counselors rooting around, he thinks, "Oh, you're putting a kid like me at risk," and so he comes in and kills you. So he's a foil to the things they want to do, right? And so a good horror, in some way, is like an evil mirror of the things you're up to.
Oh, well, we got. What is that?
Feedback
Okay.
or something.
Yes, we had some kind of feedback. Okay.
So
yes, I think.
if you're making a good creature, the creature should be a foil to the status quo in a way that shows the weakness of that status quo.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I think. I think some of the best like Raji villains are ones that you I hate to use the phrase identify with, but so that's not really it. It's something that could actually exist. Like the
If you can
Contessa
identify it, it's
from,
not with it. It's not a
just the
horror villain, in
wealthy.
my view.
Well, no, I mean identify with it like is that it could have some level of reality. You know what I mean? Like I don't such that you the player are like, oh crap, this actually could happen. So it has some. It just sort of like takes it out of this sort of imaginary quasi reality and gives it a little bit more, I don't know, meat to it. Again, like the Contessa from Blood and the Chocolate, she was just this really greedy noble who had this magic chocolate that she was exploiting all these little pygmies to make this like highly addictive chocolate that would, if you ate it, too much of it, terrible things would happen to you. And that was like kind of the fun, horrific part of the whole module. So I think
normal chocolate is what you're saying.
But like I think that helps. I mean, I don't think all monsters have to be that way, but I think that helps. Certainly, like for like supernatural entities, if we have
we lost Matt
as to like if you have an understanding as to why they are the way they are, I think that goes a long way. Like when you realize Samara from The Ring said 7 days because she was trapped in a well for 7 days, starving to death. I mean, that sends a shiver down your spine, and you're almost like, yeah, I'd probably start coming out of TVs too, So I think that helps.
I think that's fine to find a trigger, but the reality is, I think a horror antagonist has to be something that's outside of ordinary human experience and the supposed laws of nature. Otherwise, the element of horror isn't present. I mean, it can make for a great villain. The trigger should be something like you're talking about the woman in the well. Why in God's name is she coming out of the TV at you? There should be no connection. That's the whole point. It's like, why?
Oh no,
this woman on a videotape that's coming to murder me.
Yeah, well, that's the supernatural element, but like how she was created is like that adds a level of horror. Like you're like, holy crap, someone actually did this to someone. My problem with like, I made a horror scenario where there's just like this creepy demon. To me, that's a little too cartoonish. You know what I mean? Like I at that point, it's just a stat block. In which case we're no longer talking about mechanics. Now we're really going back into environment, setting, and why I should be scared of this thing. And you're going into the blood and the skins and
what you just described is almost everything Lovecraft wrote.
Yeah, well,
what was Lovecraft's point in supernatural horror and literature?
The question was designing a villain, though, right? So
yeah, but okay. So again, I see a horror villain or a horror antagonist as being different. The greatest fear is the fear of the unknown, right? So to a certain degree, what you confront should be inexplicable. I'll go a step further. A proper horror villain isn't really capable of being fought in the ordinary way. If you do, it's become more like dark fantasy or pulp horror at that point, or not even pulp horror, because Lovecraft was pulp. And you didn't fight the horrors of the outer darkness. You You couldn't even fight their servants. You could survive them.
Yeah, but again, like going back to the ring, you don't find that out till the end of the movie. So although it's this, you have no idea what you're facing, right? It's just like this crazy thing that's happening with this videotape, right? And you slowly build up the mystery, and like the horror deepens. And you're just like, wait a minute, she was psychic when she was alive. All these things start to stack up. So there is still that element of the unknown. What I'm saying is, like, if no one in their right mind traps a girl in a well for 7 days, right? That is the thing that is jarring. That's the thing that kind of like impedes on your reality, and you're just like, oh, that's horrific. Like, I wouldn't want to be down there. Yeah, no wonder she's mad. So and that's kind of what I'm getting at. But I don't know if, Gary, that's what you were going for. Like, were you talking about mechanically, or
No, it's look. I don't. I'm about to upset everybody. I think you can use elements of horror in a game. I just don't think you're the feeling that you want to get across, Matt. I just don't know that is possible. The same way I'm not going to feel a real sense of danger, when I'm going to feel excitement, and and there's that suspense, and then there's also that player side, the investment in that character. No, I really don't want him to die. But as far as like that those real feelings, those primal fear kind of things, I think you get a jump scare. I think I got a jump scare out of people once, right? Like
You can't force the willing suspension of disbelief. I think this makes horror gaming different. Oh wait, Gary was still talking and we can't hear him.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, sorry. It's like I heard your voice stop and I thought, okay, I'll say something now. Oh well. Anyway, no, all I was saying is that I think that this makes horror tabletop role-playing games inherently different, as we've already kind of touched on, which is that you have to have the willingness of the players to participate, right? It's not like D&D. In D&D, I think the dungeon master, or for fantasy role-play period, even dark fantasy, you can drive it more. With horror role-playing, I think your players, as Miguel mentioned earlier, really have to be willing to go along with you. Yeah. And if they are, the sense of horror is coming from their participation and willingness to feel those emotions. No, if you've got somebody and they're not into it, they're not, you can't force it.
Right. No, the players, you definitely need player buy-in for sure.
And I think I agree with what Gary's saying too, that you're not going to get that platonic ideal of fear or horror, right? In an RPG.
It's a game.
Oh, yeah. It's just something you're not going to get to, but you can meet halfway, right? And you can get that because what you really want at a gaming table out of a spooky or horror scenario is that titillation of, oh, this would be creepy as hell if this was happening to me, right? And plus or minus your immersion, you'll feel that more or less, right? So
I would argue the adrenaline rush of being in a firefight. Not that I've ever experienced that, but you won't feel that either when you're playing.
Exactly.
But we strive for it, though, is the point, right? Yeah. Like, and that's kind of like what I'm talking about when I say, like, because I love horror more than I like action movies, right? So for me, my focus is how far can I get, right? And that's all I'm saying. And again, maybe I am chasing a ghost, but like I think the chase is worth it.
No, and I think you don't get to the peaks that you can get to unless you're shooting over them, right? So yeah.
And I would also ask you, Matt, because when we say horror movies, we've said this before. It's like talking about donuts, right? Like there's a million different kinds of donuts. So if you ask me if I like donuts, I mean, I like some of them. I don't like cream-filled things. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of horror, right? So what are the elements? Yeah. I think if you take the elements of the horror that you're really into and find a way to weave that into your game, you can definitely, create that mood for your players who have bought in. for sure.
Yeah, and I think identifying the different types that are out there, and again, going back to like the Red Room's products and their offerings, there's a smattering of it all there. They have the Grindhouse, but they also have the Supernatural, right? And I think what I've been messing around with Shadow Dark, is how to use some of Shadow Dark's game mechanics to do some of the different things that's possible, like in the different genres. But I don't know. One of these days,
I will, for Gary's point, I will say it's even worse than donuts. It is pizza, because
Word.
there's a million different ways. Everybody has their way, like different, like the Japanese style horror is so much better because it's thicker and it has more sauce, right? Like everybody's everybody's got their knives out to defend their type of horror.
So what is pineapple on pizza in terms of horror?
I think
Bullshit.
that's Hammer horror, man. That's
Mm.
pineapple.
So
Pineapple
Jagerhard,
pizza.
I like
Jagerhard is definitely pineapple pizza.
Okay, I agree with that.
No,
Miguel,
Raven Law.
Dying Breed brings up a really great point, because the four of us have been arguing over some nitpicky bullshit. What do you think, Miguel? Because you're the one that's been writing a bunch.
What do I think about exactly what's the question?
I know what's
Yeah,
the question.
Yeah. Tell us how
That's
to
the thing,
achieve true
we've been
horror
wandering
and
for a
make
while.
a really good horror opponent. Yeah.
No, I repeat what I said before. I think if you want really to play a horror game, you need to have a group and a game master who are all interested in playing a horror game. If you are going to bring some guy that only wants to play dungeon crawl or something like that, there's no way you can get him to play a horror game, unless, of course, you bring the gun. In that case, yeah, you can have him scared for his life.
So
Miguel, let's pull this back to-
I think Miguel just gave me permission to bring a loaded handgun to my next game.
No.
John Wick
No.
gave you permission to do that.
So Miguel, let's pull this back to Darker, because in the foreword you make it pretty clear where Darker came from and why you wrote it, and it ties into another game called Cult. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So Cult, I don't know if everybody's aware what it was, or it still is in a way.
We're familiar with it.
Yeah, no, I mean everybody in the audience probably. Maybe some don't know what it is. So it's a 1990s horror game. It was made to be a mature horror game. There are some issues with the first edition. The rules weren't really that good anyway. Much worse than that is the new version, because they adapted it to Powered by the Apocalypse, which in my opinion doesn't work for horror games. But I don't really think Powered by the Apocalypse works at all. But
So you were grumpy about that.
Answering the question, yeah, the players becoming gods is the new version. The other one wasn't really about that.
Cult Fourth Divinity Lost is explicitly Gnostic, right?
Well, I
So-
think every version of Cult has been
No,
based on Gnosticism.
the Gnosticism was the background, but it wasn't on the title.
Mhm.
The first one, it was called Cult. Death is only the beginning. So the Gnosticism was somewhere. The new one is called Cult Divinity Lost. So
Yeah.
the focus changed a lot.
I always described Cult as like after the Satanic Panic, gaming was like, okay, we're going to get as far away from all the things we've been accused of as we can get, except Cult. Cult was like, we're
Yeah.
going to run right into the middle of those accusations and absorb them like a piece of bounty paper towel. And yeah, it had everything in role playing that you could ever conceive of was being accused of. They were like, yep, we're going to run right at all of that. And
The first was basically Hellraiser, the role-playing game,
yeah,
but without the actual IP being used. But it got a lot of stuff from there, and other For example, David Lynch was also a great influence. Cronenberg was an influence. William Burroughs was an influence. That's why I liked it. I liked all of the influences they had.
So here's the thing. What pulled me in with Darker was the vision. It was literally the horror of seeing what's going outside your window. It is that stark and real. Darker gives the ability to create some very uncomfortable horror because it is drawn from the events of the everyday, and we see them on our television screens and we don't even recognize them. It just adds the supernatural twist, the nihilism, the self-destruction. God is silent and we're at fault. But yet it's not a matter of personal culpability. We're just on the downhill of the decline. It's really grim and stark, and it can make for some horrific gaming if your players are prepared to buy into the concept. I actually think it's far superior to how Cult originally was envisioned. I've seen the original game. Darker's just better. That's why I ended up writing so much content for it. It's like, wow, we have this really great vision. Now let's illustrate it. And then I saw this Not Safe for Work channel on the Red Room Discord server. And I started posting saucy images accompanied by really horrific little vignettes that were meant to serve as inspirations, things to get you into the mindset, adventure seeds, whatever you want them for. So that's why I was saying it was really Darker that pulled me in. I like Gothic. I really like Grindhouse Red. I like The Other Side of the Mirror, but I keep coming back to Darker because it is so grim.
We can honestly say on that server that we read that section for the articles. So
it has nothing to do with the titties. Guys, if you're watching, you are missing so much by not being on the Red Room Discord server. I'm just going to say it.
And just for the audience, in case they don't read, Darker, Gothic, Other Side of the Mirror, and Grindhouse Red are all products of the Red Room. Varying shades of horror gaming, various settings, genre, and genres. But I recall seeing some of that stuff there, OSR Dwarf. So you said Darker does it for you. And maybe this is a question for all three of you. Is it the grim nature of some of the Red Room's offerings that let's set the setting and tone for a good horror game, or is that just coincidence?
It definitely helps. I mean, each of the games focuses it, right? To like Darker is all about like, the modern day feeling that we always have, and it's the same feeling everyone's had since the Industrial Revolution, right? Like the current age is getting out of hand, and I'm losing. As I get older, it's looking less like my childhood, and I'm very, very worried about where things are going, and so the 21st century has ramped that up even more, and so Darker slots into that, right? Like, this is all, that idea that we're at the end times, but like, what does that look like, right? Like, if this really is the watch running down, what is living in that world going to be like? And then with the addition of the supernatural elements and the horror theme, like OSR Dwarf was saying, you can really get a personal or a outside the window or from the headlines kind of horror out of that, just by taking some weird element that happened in last month's newspaper and making that into a scenario. Like, and you just ask the three questions, like, who's behind this, what do they want, how is this a supernatural thing? And you just shave the serial numbers off the event maybe a little bit or whatever, and that's your scenario. And because it is something that feels like it could be something in our world, it's a good starting point for when the roller coaster goes way off the rails, right?
Got a question from Dying Breed real quick here. It's going to Miguel. How do you get players to invest?
Well, I would say that the best way is to choose the players, the right ones. If you pick the right players, you know they will invest. If that's possible, I think it's the easiest way to do that.
I think
If
the
you have
other
a group of players that you can choose the right ones for that, it's better than to do the opposite. To have a group of players and then try to make them invest in a horror game. I tried that and it didn't work. So I started selecting the players instead of trying to convince the players to get into horror.
And I think the other thing you do, and maybe it's even unconsciously, although I don't think so. I think it's just because you have that cinematic sense. Is every player character is tied in to whatever's going on. You have relationships with the NPCs. You have things that are going on. So yeah, you take away that buffer, right? Like if you're just the guys that came into town this week, and oh, here's this bad situation, you can leave, right? Like, oh, well, sucks to be you. I hope you get out of here before the orcs come. But if you're in the village and it's your grandma, and your grandma can't leave because she's old, and you can't get all of her stuff out, you got to stand and figure out what to do about these orcs, to borrow that situation. But yeah, you integrate the characters in really well, so that confrontation is the necessity, right? You can't just run away from it. I mean, eventually you can, but at that point you realize you're betraying all these obligations that you've got.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick and kind of back Miguel up on something. When it seems like I guess it can seem like a flippant answer, just pick the right players, but it is so important for every role playing game, whether it's horror, fantasy, sci-fi. You need to make your pitch to your players, and you need to make that pitch to players you trust to buy in. And you know, over the past couple years, I've been playing with a lot of new people online, and I've got them divided up. These guys are going to play D&D, and these guys are going to play this game. It's just kind of how they are. So I think that's a great answer. I think it's the perfect answer is,
Yeah.
You've got to curate your players, or they're just going to try to break your game. Yeah.
Yeah, and even as a player, curate the groups that if you don't like the genre, if you don't like the play style, you're just going to make things worse by being there eventually, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be a good fit. You're going to act out, or it's going to be obvious you're not enjoying yourself. So yeah, why spoil the party if they're enjoying it? Go find a party you'll enjoy, right? And no
Agreed.
harm, no foul, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think I've played in a couple games where I feel like I've had a player who just wanted to play a game, and come hell or high water, he was playing a game his way.
Yeah.
The further from that we're here with, the further away that we go from that, I think our players really need to be aware. I mean, if Isaac is still here, I fucking destroyed one of his games just because I didn't understand what kind of genre it was. He wanted to do something investigative, and I just started a bar fight and set shit on fire. I had no clue. So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
I think might help to I do agree. Like if especially if you're gonna do like something like hardcore, like my Lamentations of Elemental Evil campaign, I was looking for people who were curious about Lamentations and were willing to do something that was going to be a little bit more hardcore. Some of them, I think, we're talking a big game until the bodies started hitting the floor.
Yeah.
And then the complaining and whining started, but it fell on deaf ears. I don't care. But I think showing art too. Like I think can help. Gary, you said something to this effect years ago when in our old podcast. You're like, yeah, sometimes I just, if I'm interested in a new game, I'll just show the book to my players and some of the cool art in it, and maybe that'll get them interested in trying this new thing. And I think if you have something that's like, I'm not a huge fan of Palladium, but the cover of Beyond the Supernatural was like, whoa, this looks kind of cool, for like a investigative horror game. Or like the cover of Rifts, that got me totally in wanting to play that. That's not really horror, that's kind of more of a gonzo thing.
I'm of the opinion role-playing games can be judged by their covers. That's just me. Hot take. I think role-playing games should be judged by their covers.
What did you think of the cover of the Black Protocol?
Hold on, I have to look at it. Let me tell you my experience with Wretched. I've got
real quick super chat, real quick, $5. Another one from Disco. Thank you, sir. Find new table if the game doesn't fit me without trying to force all my beliefs and forcing everyone to change for me. Are you new?
I am new. I'm getting the hair dye tomorrow, so we'll see how it works.
All right, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say,
thanks,
you
Disco.
had asked me. I don't know if I can recall that cover right off the bat. I can't recall it right off the bat. Sorry, man. My bad.
Is it just blank black?
Is it? What is it?
No, it's the Black Protocol. So I've released 2 supplements for Darker. One was part of the Game Jam, if you recall. That was the Black Protocol. And it's this looming, hideous god looming over a tiny human figure in the foreground in the midst of a dark backdrop.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Dark Corners was a similar theme. I do charge a little bit for that, but Dark Corners was intended to take some of the inspirations I've been creating, which I call Dark Corners for Darker RPG, and turn them into show, okay, you have this adventure seed, how might you use it? Because for some people, having stuff like, yes, that's the Black Protocol. So if you saw that, what would you immediately think?
I would think that we're all going to play characters that are going to go crazy and or die.
And there you go.
From horrors, yeah. That would
So
be my first thought.
So to a certain degree, I think you're correct. But I also think that's just a matter of giving people, when you present the cover, presentation is part of it. You want people to get into what the game offers. That's why the Dark Corners exist. It's like, there's this fantastic game. I want people to really get into it, because there's a lot of folks who they'll take a look at it and they won't understand the setting or what's being expressed there. Let me come up with some really horrible, twisted stuff. And also some sexy pictures. But that's beside the point. And it's like, horror can be sexy. I'm sure Venger would agree with me.
I think sex and horror are actually intertwined, because that's like when you're most vulnerable. This is somewhat related to what we've been talking about, but I thought Connect's comment is a really good one. I think it applies more broadly. I have played a lot of games, to be honest. I've never played a game I haven't loved. In my opinion, games are made by DM and players, not the rules.
Rulings over rules.
I think I agree with that. No, I know I agree with that.
I'm sure I agree with that.
Yeah.
Rulings over rules, guys. And, to be honest, that's what makes the bedroom games great.
Gary's become Mr. Rules is Written guy. He's flipping out right now. He muted himself.
Yep. The OSR dissenter. No, it's that's what makes the Red Room games so great. You have Wretched, you have Red, the new Red rules. And the reality is they're rules that we're all familiar with. And if you want to riff on them, you can. Because if you there you go, Red.
Nice
and
cover.
Which, by the way, has recently been updated. So if you want to do the usual things that you do in your OSR games, and make the little changes or adjustments, you already know what you're doing. So it's a very familiar thing. And yet, to me, this is the really great thing Miguel does. His settings are so strong. So because Darker pulled me in, I took a look at New Flesh. Holy cow! That's the world of the sprawl, not Cyberpunk 2020, not
Yeah.
Cyberpunk Red.
I agree with you on that. And what I like about Wretched New Flesh, and I guess New Flesh for the red version, is that it's got that supernatural like magic element to it. So it's more than just a cyberpunk future. There's like this it's like it's a veneer, like the cyberpunk stuff is just sort of like glossing over something that's bubbling under the surface, this like horrific supernatural entity, force, evil, however you want to describe it. And I really like that. I like that a lot. And that's kind of like how a lot of the settings with the Red Room are like Wretched Interbellum. Like it's become like one of my like guilty pleasures, I guess. I've been writing a little bit for it here and there. I have a bunch of stuff that's not finished, but I'd like to publish. But it's like between World War I and World War II, and it's like pulp adventures. But guess what? There is still that like underlying like thing that's there. So I don't know. I really like that.
So I think I know what it is, Matt, because that's what I first encountered when I got my COC box set back in the early 80s. Is one of the things, if you recall, is they actually had a 1920s source book. And one of the things they were trying to do is pull you into the world of Lovecraft stories. And that's also the world of Wretched Interbellum. It's the world of modernism. So this is immediately after World War I, and the old paradigm has failed, right? That's a period of time when people's minds were broken by the horrors of scientific warfare, and the belief in progress began to stumble. And so it's a fantastic setting for a certain kind of both pulp adventure and horror. Yeah. I mean, most of the pulp authors who influenced our hobby wrote in the 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Some of them didn't write in any other era. So, yeah, absolutely. I think Wretched Interbellum is great.
All right. Well, I think we know the answer to the question. I think we know OSR Dwarf's answer to the question I'm about to ask. What is your favorite Red Room setting and book? Because he's been talking about it nonstop. No, I'm just kidding, buddy.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm teasing.
I'm guilty. I admit it.
But like, Judd, what about you? Like, is there a particular one that you like?
It's a tough answer. Well, I would say that New Flesh has always been, a really, really strong one, because I came at it from the other direction. I was a big fan of Over the Edge in the 90s, right? Like that game was amazing. And then Atlas, I spent a lot of money on the Kickstarter for the 3rd edition of that. And what we got was just this tepid, affected by the times kind of thing that didn't feel like Burroughs. It didn't even feel like Jonathan Tweet from the 90s, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's sad. And then this game came along, and it had that Burroughs feel. It was set in the inner zone. It had that, that weird surreal feel, but it also had the cyberpunk element in it. It had the, the supernatural element. It's reverse engineering infernal technology to make people worse by turning them into cyberpunks. That is so laden with opportunity for cool stories. And so that was Apple my eye for a long time. But then Nova Nexus kind of worked its way in there, and I just like the idea of it. And Belle Epoque, I think, so those three kind of, are up there. Now for horror, I think Gothic is probably my favorite, because, Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter is my jam. And so, yeah, anytime you can do the whole Van Helsing stake someone, and, that era is just really good for that. And because I am more of the creepy school of horror in some cases. So yeah, that's my favorite for horror. But yeah, there's just a lot to choose from. But if for people who are familiar with the Wretched verse, I would really encourage you to check out Red and the Micro Red games, because early on the Wretched verse was kind of it was a shared universe, but it had its it had its divisions, and there was the assumption of the anti-hero, right? And that was great for what it did, but I think that kind of got some people to think that was the only thing you could do with it. And the red and the micro red games show the breadth of things you can do with this game. There's the kids on bike genre, there's the sci-fi stuff, there's all these other projects. Soldier of Fortune is the A team, or in our case, Thunder in Paradise. Uh, and these are genres that you can use this stuff with, and it just works, and it's a really good streamlined system. You can port it to whatever, and you can grab stuff from all across the OSR, and minimal tweaks required to make it work. So um, it's all that in a bag of chips, right? So yeah, if
Yeah,
if if
I
Wretched
sort of
didn't
feel
work
like
for you, check out
yeah.
Red.
Yeah, I think Miguel really found his voice actually with like the red system. Though Wretched held a special place in my heart precisely because of the Beyond. And that sort of like unofficial sort of connection to it all. I really like that, because that's the Beyond is sort of like this thing that's just sort of behind the veil of reality, that's constantly pressing in, whether you're in a cyberpunk setting or the Wild West, 19 or 1890s Paris, the 1920s, 1930s. It's always there, and I like that a lot. But Miguel, what's your favorite? Out of everything that you've written, what's your favorite?
My favorite is New Flash. It's not exactly original, of course. Nothing is original, but it's the one that created a different kind of connection between different styles. That probably that's why my favorite. Of course, I prefer to run truly horror games, so I would say that my favorite to run is Darker or Gothic. But the one as the creator of the game, the game I prefer would definitely has to be New Flash.
I would say don't be so hard on yourself about that, because yeah, it is a casserole, but it's a damn good casserole, because the secret is to get all the ingredients just right. Right, you've got your influences, but you put them in exactly the order they need to be in, and the proportions they need to be in, and yeah, that's why it works.
Yeah, I think
So
they all fit together some way. It's strange, but of course the game is supposed to be strange.
yeah.
So the strangeness of it is not really a problem. It's
Yeah, if you're
supposed to be
doing
like that.
burrows and it's not strange, you're not
Yeah,
really
there's a
doing
problem there.
burrows, right?
Well, and you also mentioned Twin Peaks. Was that
Oh yeah.
or was that last time we? Here's my question: when you're naming some of these influences, most guys are drawing dungeons, right? It's one room to one room. I, how are you guys? What's the point to point for the players? Like, what's the practical kind of gameplay? Are you thinking that NPCs are the connection points, or are they? Do they become that room to explore, and how do you decide? I mean, how do you set your players on course? What are they bouncing off of?
Well, a good way to do that is, since you mentioned Twin Peaks,
Mhm.
for example, in Welcome to St. Cloud or the Memorial, the setting is a place where there are stories, there are secrets, there are NPCs, And so, yeah, the way what you are exploring is the environment, not necessarily in an unknown environment. You know the places that are there, but there are secrets below the surface the characters already know. And of course, the NPCs, the connections between the NPCs and the characters, the NPCs between themselves as well. So I think that's important. That's the most important thing. Yeah, the connections
Well,
between the things.
it is a it is a different way to think about, when you're planning an adventure or a game, whatever, however you refer to it. You do have to think differently than just, putting things in hexes or putting things, in the room. What about you guys? What's your practical, like, how do you get players moving? What does that look like when you're not exploring a dungeon or hex crawling? How are you thinking about it?
Usually, especially with things like St. Cloud or whatnot, the player characters will start with a mission or a mystery, right? That is just push them into action, and and I will deny ever saying this, but one of the things that the Forge did right was Ron Edwards' idea of like the kicker, right? Like there is something that just happened to you, you know, before play that has pushed you into action. What is that thing? Is it as simple as, you're part of a university team and you've heard that these woods out at St. Cloud are, some sort of paranormal activity is occurring out there, and you guys are, by gosh, going to earn your grant money by going out there and, doing some EM studies and things like that. And then you get out there and the woods are, well, they're weird, but they're not the weirdest thing in town, right? Like everyone you meet is a Twin Peaks like character, and you're
Right.
you're like, what's going on here? Like, why is everyone treating us like this? Or why is that guy so friendly and that guy so not friendly? And after a while, because you have to interact with these NPCs to achieve your mission, you're going to learn more about them, and you're going to start asking questions like, why do those two people like me but they hate each other, right? Like why are they always warning me of the other person or whatnot? And so eventually, as time goes on, you're working your mission, or you're solving your mystery, but over time you're going to figure out that there's a mystery over here too, that this nice lady that works at the library has got a hate on for this other person that you also think's a
Mhm.
pretty good dude. What's going on there? And then you step into all their little drama, and that unfolds another thing for you to follow up on later. And which do you solve first? Do you have to get this situation ironed out in order to get back on track with your mystery, or do you just focus down and handle that later? But you're always asking questions about what's going on with these people. So
Go ahead, Osar Dwarf. Were you about to say something?
No,
I
no.
was just gonna say I agree with Judd in all things.
Well, I'll add. Actually, had a question a little while back, and I missed it, so I want to get to it. Miguel, when you run your games, how do you describe the violence, kill, injury important to you? And I don't necessarily mean like a drawn out torture scene. I think he's asking kind of like how you do it,
I
describe it,
think
and all that stuff.
everything is all of that is important, of course. Describing the more grotesque aspects of injuries and all that, yes, and torture scenes, of course. Yeah, why not?
Nothing's off the
Or-
table.
No,
I
for us, nothing is off. I've described very gruesome stuff. I prefer to do it in Portuguese, of course. My fluency is a little bit better in Portuguese, but lately I had to adapt game mastering in English, so it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes I have to stop to
It,
think.
It's so
Right.
much more poetic when he's telling you how you were eviscerated in Portuguese. Makes no
Yeah.
sense at all, but it's very poetic, right?
Well, it's the fear of the unknown. You have no idea what's
Right.
going on. You just know you're deducting hit points.
Yeah,
Uh,
the greatest fears are the fear of the unknown, and then the fear of your game master just suddenly talking to you in Portuguese, right? Like those are the two great fears.
If you know Spanish, you might understand a few words. Of course.
Yeah.
yeah. I meant to click on this one from Mike. How about everyone pick an Appendix N horror influence?
Ooh.
That's a great question. I always ask that question. What is everyone's
Now,
Appendix
does
N?
that mean pick something from Appendix N that is horrific, or
No.
of all the books in the world, what would be in your personal Appendix N for horror?
That's how I usually
I'm
interpret
going to
that
go
question.
with
So,
Edgar Allan Poe all day, every day. That guy's my
Oh,
jam.
cool. All right.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah,
Dwarf.
Poe was the original, right? Before Poe, you don't have the modern short story, and the essence of a lot of modern horror is the short story. So,
And he sort of invented the detective story in a way.
he did.
It's hard.
Murders in
hard.
Rue Morgue, I would say, is a
Yeah.
classic detective story. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he is the coolest thing to come out of Baltimore.
I would
Says
pick
the Wire.
the.
Says the Wire.
I was going to say the
only
Wire is
thing-
pretty good,
But to
I'll
be
give it
fair,
Poe.
Poe is not on the Appendix N list.
All right, I will give you a little quote the
Well,
Wire.
no, we're talking about your own
She-
personal. It's your own personal Appendix N. When we're
Oh,
talking
gotcha.
Yeah, your own personal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So Poe's great. What about you?
Miguel?
Oh yeah, Books of Blood by Clive Barker.
Mm.
I think it's
Oh,
there's a because the advantage is you have a bunch of short stories there, and all of them can be turned into a different horror scenario. Would be cool for one shots. Some of them
The
especially.
Hellbound Heart is really interesting. If you read that and contrast it with the movie Hellraiser,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
quite distinctive. Yeah.
yeah. I for me, I'm H.P. Lovecraft, and he's also on the original Appendix N. But I started reading him back in the day, and while like I read like Clive Barker a little bit, and like Stephen King, which I don't know if he really counts anymore, but
His early
and there was
stuff
someone else,
counts.
Dean. Yeah, and some of that stuff was like kind of cool, but like at the end of the day, like Lovecraft really bejesus out of me when I was a kid. And then most recently Robert Chambers, who I guess influenced Lovecraft. So all that stuff. But we got something from Cloaker. DM Cloaker. Super chat, $19.88. An awfully specific super chat, Brian. Thank you. The Killing Joke challenge for the panel. You're being paid $1,000 to run a one-on-one Marvel or DC horror RPG session. What hero and what villain would be your go-to?
Okay, who starts?
Okay, so I would say Swamp Thing versus Werewolf.
Bro, I was just going to go with Swamp Thing. I was going to say Man Thing and Werewolf by Night. But they're buddies on the TV show, so who knows?
If it's me, I'm running Doctor Strange as the hero and Nightmare as the villain, man. Ditko's Doctor Strange stuff, like, except no substitutes.
Sorry, I have no idea.
I don't think Miguel would get like Marvel or DC. That's a fairly
I haven't read
American
comics.
question.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of comics.
I think Miguel would have Paste Pot Pete facing off against Apocalypse.
I have no idea.
That's a good one.
Or Squirrel Girl versus
oh man, I have
the
seen some
Beyonder,
Squirrel Girl cosplays. Oh my goodness.
Squirrel Girl's true power is so meta. Her real power is the cutscene. Like
Exactly.
she will meet some unstoppable villain, that you would never put her in a versus topic with, and then they just cut away to someone else, and then when they cut back, that guy's already beaten and in a trash can, and they never have to explain why. And that's the beauty of that's her true power. Like, and no, and they don't need to define it any better than that. So
I don't know if you guys are like comic guys, but there's this great scene, and I'm trying to remember what comic it's in. I think it's in Aaron's. Whenever Wolverine was running the school, but Wolverine walks into the front of the X Mansion, and Squirrel Girl is there, and he looks at her, and she smiles, and he just turns around. He's like, "I gotta go." He just turns around and walks out.
I think Thanos avoids her too for similar reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, they're done. They're out. So I love that. Well, I think horror is a difficult. Go ahead.
I was just say, what you're the comic guy. Well, who would you run?
That's really hard. Those are really good answers. I think Doctor Strange and Nightmare is good. I think anything with Swamp Thing or Man Thing.
I'm kind of surprised nobody's mentioned Professor Pig yet, because that guy is creepy as hell.
I don't know that reference. That
I'm trying to remember. There was you know what? It would be Hellboy and Rasputin.
Yeah.
But that's not Marvel or DC, so maybe
that's independent. Yeah, that's Dark
definitely
Horse.
Independent. But when I think Squirrel Girl is trash, yo. Thank you.
Thanks, Disco.
No, I would say if you're into horror and you're interested in comics, go do anything Hellboy or BPRD. Straight up. That stuff is great.
So Disco Barbarian, it's really the cosplays of Squirrel Girl that we're kind of keen on. Yeah, you're right. The character's trash.
I didn't.
If they'd gotten that AT&T Lily from AT&T lady to play her, I could have been down for that.
I'm good. Although I do like that Lily from AT&T.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know a whole lot about comics, but if it was me, I know I'd pick Joker to be the villain, and I'd play him as a homicidal maniac, and he would be doing a lot of killing in gruesome and awful ways. And as for the hero, maybe I'd have to pick Batman, but I would be systematically killing everyone that he loves with the Joker, that is. But I don't know.
The problem is here again, we're talking about superheroes and supervillains, and therefore there's capability and agency and ability.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, no, I agree.
And
that's why I'm not sure the Marvel that game system is actually good for horror. But anyway,
I think
you're talking about Phaser Rip.
Yeah, Face Rip.
It's such a fun game.
It's a great name too.
Yeah, the thing is though is
I love Face Rip.
That's something we talked about before. I think is that you have the typical role-playing game. Your character isn't a normal person, and they're not powerless. So that you kind of have to work to overcome that. And I think that's where somebody had said earlier something about connections and like having those NPCs that your characters care about. I make jokes all the time about, giving your players a puppy at the beginning of the campaign and letting it grow up and then killing it right before the finale.
Like the Kingsman style. They're like,
yeah. You got it. You just got it. Whatever they care about the most, you got to blow up or kill. That's just the way it works, man. That's the price they pay. So, well, guys, thanks a lot. This has been fun. I appreciate it.
Before we let you go, why don't we do a quick go around and shill? Because it's the Wretched Crew. OSR Tour, if you mentioned you had written a few things, what should people be looking out for?
Right. So the Black Protocol is free. Dark Corners is very reasonably priced. They're both supplements for Miguel's Darker RPG. They are already available on both Lulu and the Red Room store. Coming out eventually When working schedule permits, there will be Elohim, which if you have Dark RPG, you've already gotten a preview of Elohim, which is kind of some people would call it religious horror, right? It's definitely in the world of Darker, but it takes a different slant to the whole silence of God. What happens if God isn't silent? And how might that be horrific? So then there's also the Solitary House, which I'm hoping to run a campaign so I can actually get the work done necessary to pull together the module. There's the Bellic session. We actually ran the Bellic session in a live gaming session you can view on the Red Room YouTube channel. I just haven't finished the module yet, but that will be done soon, or at least be in a shape that Miguel can turn it into something. So lots of stuff coming up. It's just a matter of getting time to do it.
Ain't that
I love
true,
Darker.
Yeah.
Did I say that already?
P.S.
Sorry.
OSR Dwarf loves Darker. Judd, I know you've written something.
Yeah, I've written two things. I wrote a adventure seed mini adventure that's in the back of New Flesh. So if you get that now, it's also available. I think it's issue 5 of the Wretched Verses. If is the same scenario. And then I have written a thing for the game jam Fallen Sparks for End of Innocence, which was my take on the kind of the Steven Spielberg summer, kids movies where, something alien falls into their town and the kids have to lend a hand to these benign but secretive aliens to get things going. So it's kind of like ET meets I forget the name of the other movie where the aliens fall and the kids are helping them repair their ship. So yeah, it's
batteries not included.
That's it. Batteries not included, and a little bit explorers too. Yeah. So that one though, I want to expand on that later because, yeah, we had the word limit, and I was like right up against it. So there were things where I said like, oh, the GM should do this kind of thing, right? But I wanted to provide some of those cards and things like that to show how to manage the resource thing a little better. So I may revisit that just to expand it out. And I've got a couple of other scenarios that I made just to run that I probably should put into some sort of form and publish. But I'm a doer, not a writer, unfortunately at the moment, and I need to fix that.
Miguel, what's I think I know what your most recent publication is. Is that tell me.
The most recent thing is The Other Side of the Mirror.
That's it.
And also, I'm going to show it again. This is not new, but the cover is, and some of the content inside is. So if you haven't picked up anything from the Red Room, I think this is a place to start. Red, it's free, so there's an advantage to that. And it was revised recently. I think it's useful not just by itself, but if you are playing any of the micro Red games, this might be useful to have around to clarify some rules. And then even the Red games, the full rules Red games, it might be useful. Other than that, well, if you are still looking for something to run for Halloween, you still have a week, so you can still pick something. We are having a Halloween sale. If just write Halloween sale when you are on checkout, and it will give you a 40% discount. There's plenty of old scenarios there. I haven't done anything lately. Not horror, not anything else. We've been releasing games mostly lately, but from the Wretched games, there's a bunch of horror scenarios there.
Well, I have links to Lulu and the Red Room's store website store in the description. I have there. I've been chilling this like crazy because I really like it. But this is called Isle of the Sapphire God. It's a wretched interbellum adventure. Hex crawl across a mysterious island that pops up. And then my personal favorite is Wretched Folklore. It's a bunch of extra rules for your Wild West campaigns to make them more, well, supernatural and weird. So
and I will pay it a great compliment that it is a very Southern book to be written by a Yankee. So
thank you.
I think you felt us in your heart when you wrote it.
Well, thank you, sir. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for taking your time to come hang out with us and talk a little bit about horror games in the spooky season of Halloween. Miguel, thank you for getting up very early for us. We appreciate it. Thank you to the chat. You guys have been great. Disco in particular, thank you very much, sir.
Hey,
I don't know,
Cloaker,
Gary, any
just because
final?
you gave us, Cloaker, just because you gave us a $20 super chat doesn't mean you're not buying me beer at North Texas next year.
Uh-oh.
All right,
There you go.
You're not getting out of that.
All right, and with that, everyone, our watch has ended. See you next week.
Good night.
Dude, get up. I think I heard something.